The space station smelled like rust and old machines. Walked through the crowded halls with her head down, trying not to bump into the tall aliens around her. Station Kappa 7 was not a place for humans. It was a place for business, for buying and selling things that nobody wanted anymore. The Galactic Salvage Authority held its monthly auction here. Ships that had been abandoned, cargo that had been lost, machines that had stopped working. Everything came here to be sold or destroyed. Had been coming to these auctions for 3 years. She owned a small repair shop on Earth's orbital ring, a floating station where humans lived and worked far from the planet below. She bought broken parts here and fixed them to sell. It was not a glamorous life, but it was her life. The auction hall was a massive room with screens floating in the air. Each screen showed a different item for sale. Numbers and prices flashed in alien languages that had learned to read. Around her, creatures of many shapes and sizes pointed at screens and made bids. Most of them were the tall beings with too many eyes who ran the hegemony. Some were small and quick, with scales that changed color when they talked. A few were floating creatures made of light and shadow. And then there was one of maybe 5 humans in the entire station. She tried not to think about how small she was compared to everyone else. Her grandmother had always told her that size did not matter. What mattered was what you carried inside. Missed her grandmother very much. She walked past screens showing broken engines and damaged cargo containers. Nothing interested her. She was about to leave when something caught her eye. Lot 2847. The screen showed a ship, but it was not like any ship had ever seen. Its hull curved in strange ways, like someone had folded metal into shapes that should not exist. The surface was covered with symbols that seemed to move when she looked at them directly. The ship was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The manifest said, "Unknown origin vessel, class undesignated, scheduled for deconstruction." Stopped breathing. She knew this ship, not because she had seen it before, but because she had heard about it. Her grandmother used to whisper stories at night when was a child. Stories about a time before the hegemony came. Stories about ships that could fly across the stars in the blink of an eye. Stories about humanity's golden age. The Azure Dragon. According to her grandmother, it was the last of the Wanderer-class vessels. These were ships that had carried humans across 1,000 worlds. Ships built with technology so advanced that even now, nobody understood how they worked. The hegemony's official history said these ships never existed. The history books taught that humans had always been a small, simple species. They said humans could not travel between stars until the hegemony arrived and helped them. But's grandmother had told different stories. Her heart began to beat faster. She looked around to see if anyone else was interested in Lot 2847. Nobody was paying attention. To them, it was just another piece of junk to be destroyed. Checked her account. She had been saving money for years. She wanted to expand her shop, maybe hire some help. She had enough for that. But if she spent it all here, she would have nothing left. She thought about her grandmother's voice, soft and gentle in the darkness. "Remember who we were," her grandmother used to say. "Remember, even when everyone tells you to forget." Raised her hand and made a bid. The auctioneer was with 7 eyes that moved independently. He looked at with something like amusement. A human bidding on worthless scrap. How funny, how sad. "The human bids 3,000 credits, the auctioneer said. His voice echoed through the hall. Some aliens made sounds that might have been laughter. Nobody else bid. Why would they? The ship was marked for destruction. It was probably dangerous, probably contaminated with something, probably a waste of time and money. "Going once," the auctioneer said. His hands were shaking. "Going twice." She thought about her empty bank account, her shop, her future. Sold to the human. The aliens around her went back to their business. Nobody cared that a small woman from Earth had just bought a myth. Walked to the processing desk to complete the purchase. A bored-looking handed her a data pad to sign. She pressed her thumb against the screen and watched her savings disappear. "You have 72 hours to remove the item from the containment bay," the said. "After that, it goes to deconstruction as scheduled." "Wait," said, "I bought it. Why would it still be destroyed?" The scales flickered with annoyance. "The deconstruction order comes from the central authority. Your purchase gives you ownership of whatever parts you can remove in 72 hours. The rest will be destroyed. Standard procedure for hazardous materials." Wanted to argue, but she knew it would be useless. Humans did not argue with the hegemony. Humans did not win arguments with the hegemony. She took the data pad with the containment bay location and walked away. The bay was on the far side of the station, in a section marked with warning signs in 12 languages. Had to pass through 3 security checkpoints to get there. Each guard looked at her with suspicion. What was a human doing here? Why would a human buy something from the hazardous section? She did not explain. She just showed her ownership documents and kept walking. When she finally reached the bay, she stopped and stared. There was even more beautiful in person. It floated in the center of the containment field, surrounded by warning beacons and armed drones. The symbols on its hull glowed faintly in the dim light. They seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. Stood there for a long time just looking. Then she pulled out her communication device and called her brother. Answered on the 3rd ring. His face appeared on the small screen, looking tired and confused. He was an engineer, the practical one in the family. He thought's obsession with their grandmother's stories was childish. "What is it?" he asked. "I am in the middle of a job." "I need you to come to Station Kappa 7, said. "Right now." "What? That is a 6-hour trip. I cannot just leave." "I found it." Her brother paused. He knew what she meant. Even though he did not believe the stories, he knew what had been searching for her whole life. "That is impossible," he said. "I know, but I found it anyway, and they are going to destroy it in 72 hours if we do not do something." There was a long silence, then sighed. "I will be there as soon as I can." Ended the call and made another one. This time she called her oldest friend, was a historian who studied what she called pre-contact human studies. It was a field that the hegemony considered silly at best and dangerous at worst, had always believed the stories, even when nobody else did. "You need to come to Kappa 7, said. "I found something that will change everything." Did not ask questions, she just said, "I am on my way." Put away her device and looked at the ship again. The symbols on the hull seemed to glow a little brighter, as if the new someone was watching, as if it had been waiting for someone to find it. 72 hours. That was all the time she had to save 4,000 years of forgotten history. She did not know how she was going to do it. She did not know if it was even possible, but her grandmother's voice echoed in her mind, steady and sure. "Remember who we were. Remember, even when everyone tells you to forget." Was not going to forget, and she was not going to let the hegemony destroy the last piece of proof that her grandmother's stories were true. She sat down on the cold floor of the containment bay and began to wait. Arrived first, looking like he had not slept in days. His clothes were wrinkled and his hair was messy. He walked into the containment bay with a bag of tools over his shoulder and stopped dead when he saw the ship. "What is that?" he whispered. Stood up from where she had been sitting. Her legs were stiff from waiting. "That is the Azure Dragon, the last Wanderer-class ship." Her brother shook his head slowly. "That cannot be real. Those ships are myths, children's stories." Grandmother did not tell us children's stories. She told us the truth. Walked closer to the containment field. The warning drones moved to track him, but he ignored them. His engineer's eyes studied the hull, the impossible curves, the strange symbols. "The metal is not anything I recognize," he said. "The construction method is not like anything in hegemony databases. This is not just old. This is different." arrived an hour later. She was a small woman with glasses and messy hair tied back in a ponytail. She carried a bag full of old books and data tablets. When she saw the ship, she dropped everything and ran to the edge of the containment field. "Oh my God," she breathed. "It is real, it is actually real." She pulled out one of her tablets and began comparing the symbols on the hull to images in her files. Her hands were shaking. "These markings," she said, "they are old script, the language we supposedly never had. The hegemony says humans never developed writing before contact, but this proves they lied." Looked at her brother and her friend. These were the only two people she trusted completely. Together, they had 53 hours left before the ship would be destroyed. "We need to get inside," she said. "We need to find out how to save it." Examined the hull from every angle. He found what looked like a door, a smooth section of metal with a slightly different texture. He pressed his palm against it. Nothing happened. He tried again. He tried pressing in different spots. He tried saying commands in the hegemony's common language. Nothing worked. "It is sealed somehow," he said. "The mechanism does not respond to standard inputs." Was still studying the symbols. "These markings are not just writing, they are instructions. The ship was designed to recognize something specific." "Recognize what?" asked. "Its people." Thought about her grandmother. She thought about the long nights when the old woman would speak in Korean, not the mixed trade language that humans used with aliens, but the pure, old language that had almost been forgotten. Her grandmother said it was important to remember the old words. She said the words carried power. Stepped up to the door, she took a deep breath. And she spoke in Korean. "Jib, I am ready to come home." The ship shuddered. The containment field flickered. Alarms began to sound as the warning drones backed away in confusion. And slowly, the door opened. Air rushed out from inside. It smelled like cedar trees and rain. It smelled like earth, like the old earth from before the cities covered everything. Felt tears in her eyes, though she did not know why. "How did you do that?" asked. "Grandmother taught me," said. "She taught me to remember." They stepped inside together. The interior of the was impossible. The ship looked small from outside, maybe big enough for a crew of 10. But inside, the corridors stretched for hundreds of meters. Chambers opened on either side, filled with machines and devices that none of them recognized. "This violates every law of physics I know," said. He looked both scared and excited. Was running her hands along the walls, which were covered in more old script. "The ship is folded somehow. The inside exists in a different space than the outside." They walked deeper into the vessel. The lights came on as they moved, soft and warm. The air was clean and fresh. Despite being abandoned for thousands of years, everything seemed to work perfectly. At the center of the ship, they found the bridge. It was a circular room with a high ceiling. Displays floated in the air, dark and waiting. In the middle stood a command throne, a chair made of the same strange metal as the hull. Symbols covered its surface, glowing faintly. Walked toward it. She felt like she was being pulled, like the ship wanted her to sit down. "Wait," said. "We do not know what will happen." "I know," she said, "but I think the ship does." She sat in the chair. Light exploded around her. The displays came to life. Images and symbols flashed too fast to read, and then a voice spoke. "Captain recognized. Genetic signature confirmed. Descendant of the 14th Fleet." The voice was warm and feminine. It spoke in perfect Korean, the old formal version that's grandmother had used. I have waited 4,000 years for you." Covered her mouth with her hands, looked like he might faint. "You can talk?" asked. "I am an artificial intelligence created to serve as the heart and mind of this vessel. When my crew fell during the collapse, I sealed myself and waited. I knew that someday, one of my people would return." The displays around them began showing images. Star maps appeared with hundreds of worlds marked with human symbols, colony locations, population numbers, trade routes. "What is this?" whispered. "This is the truth," they said, "the truth that the hegemony tried to erase." The images changed. They showed cities on distant planets, humans living and working and building, ships filling the sky, a civilization that spanned the galaxy. For 12,000 years, humanity spread across the stars, the ship explained. The Wanderer-class vessels were the greatest achievement of human engineering. We could fold space itself, traveling instantly from one side of the galaxy to the other. We were explorers, builders, dreamers. "Then what happened?" asked. Her voice was barely a whisper. "The hegemony happened." The images grew darker. Ships appeared with the familiar angular design of hegemony vessels. Battles, burning cities, and then something else. A wave of energy spreading across human space, shutting down technology, erasing records, scrambling memories. "They did not conquer us through war," they said. "They conquered us through forgetting. The collapse was not an accident. It was a weapon. They destroyed our technology, burned our libraries, and rewrote our history. Within 3 generations, most humans believed they had always been a minor species." Felt sick. Everything she had been taught in school, everything the hegemony told humans about themselves, it was all lies. "Why?" she asked. "Why would they do this?" "Fear," the ship answered. "The hegemony understood something that humans did not value about themselves. Your adaptability, your persistence, your creativity, the way your species treats impossible obstacles as personal challenges. Given time, you would have surpassed them, so they made sure you would never have that time." Was staring at a display showing technical specifications. "These systems are centuries ahead of anything the hegemony uses now. How is that possible?" "Because human technology was always more advanced," they said. "The hegemony has been harvesting pieces of it for 4,000 years. They dismantle recovered vessels, study what they can, and destroy what they cannot understand. This is why they want to destroy me, not because I am hazardous, but because I am proof." Looked at her brother and her friend. They looked back at her. In their eyes she saw the same thing she felt: anger, grief, and something else. "Hope. Can we stop them?" she asked. "Can we save you?" The ship's voice seemed to warm. "You already have, Captain. By waking me, you have given me the ability to act. But we do not have much time. Hegemony forces will detect my activation soon. They will send ships to stop us." Pulled up records on her tablet, comparing them to the displays around her. "We need to tell people. We need to show everyone the truth." "Yes," they agreed. "But first we must survive. Captain, will you give me permission to defend us?" Did not hesitate. "Yes." The ship hummed with power. Displays showed shields activating, weapons systems coming online. For the first time in 4,000 years, there was preparing for battle. But knew that fighting was only part of the answer. The real war would be fought with truth, with memory, with stories that had been passed down through generations, waiting for this moment. Her grandmother had prepared her for this. Now it was time to finish what the old woman had started. "Tell me everything," said to the ship. "Tell me everything they made us forget." And they began to speak. For hours they shared its memories with them. The ship's records stretched back thousands of years, showing a civilization that had only dreamed about. She sat in the command throne while and watched the displays around them. None of them spoke. They were too amazed, too angry, too sad. The ship showed them Earth as it had once been. Green forests covering entire continents. Clean oceans filled with life. Cities that grew upward into the clouds and downward into the earth. Humans had not just survived on their home world. They had made it beautiful. And then they had left it. "The first colony ships launched 11,000 years ago," they explained. They were slow vessels, taking generations to reach their destinations. But humans did not care about the time. They cared about the journey. They carried their cultures, their languages, their stories. Every new world became a new chapter in the human story. The displays showed planet after planet. Desert worlds where humans built underground cities. Ocean worlds where they created floating nations. Frozen worlds where they learned to farm ice and light. Humans adapted to everything. They changed themselves and changed their environments. Nothing stopped them. The Wanderer-class ships were developed 2,000 years before the collapse, the ship continued. They allowed instant travel between any 2 points in space. For the first time, the scattered colonies could truly become one civilization. Trade flourished. Ideas spread. Humanity entered its golden age. Was crying openly now. She had spent her entire life studying scraps of human history, trying to piece together a picture that the hegemony had torn apart. Now she was seeing the complete painting, and it was more beautiful than she had ever imagined. We had art, she whispered. We had music. We had literature that filled entire libraries. Yes, the confirmed. Human creativity was legendary among the stars. Other species would travel across the galaxy just to experience human performances, to read human books, to taste human food. You were known not for conquest but for wonder. Was focused on the technical displays. His engineer's mind could not stop analyzing what he saw. This fold drive technology, it bends space without creating any distortion waves. The hegemony's faster-than-light systems cause massive energy disruptions. This does not. How? Human engineers solved problems that other species considered impossible, the ship said. Because you never accepted that something could not be done. You simply asked how it could be done differently. Then the displays grew darker. The golden age began to fade. The hegemony first made contact 300 years before the collapse, they explained. They came as friends, trading partners, advisors. They admired human culture and asked to learn from it. Many humans welcomed them. The images showed hegemony diplomats meeting with human leaders, smiles and handshakes, treaties signed on beautiful paper. But behind the smiles, they were studying us, learning our weaknesses, understanding how we thought and felt and dreamed. They realized that humans were a threat to their power, not because we were aggressive, but because we were unstoppable. What do you mean? Asked. Other species have limits, the ship said. They are powerful but rigid. They cannot imagine new solutions. They are clever but fearful. They run from challenges. They are wise but passive. They accept what they cannot change. But humans are different. Humans refuse to accept limits. Humans look at the word impossible and see it as an invitation. The displays showed hegemony leaders meeting in secret chambers. Their many eyes were full of something that recognized. Fear. They were afraid of us, asked. Terrified, the confirmed. They calculated that within 1,000 years, humanity would surpass the hegemony in every way, not through war but through growth, through innovation, through sheer stubborn refusal to stop reaching higher. So they decided to stop us before we could fulfill our potential. The collapse began on a single day. The displays showed the energy wave spreading from a central point, washing over human space like a tsunami. Wherever it touched, technology failed. Ships fell from the sky. Cities went dark. Records were erased. But it was not just our machines they attacked, the ship said. They attacked our minds. The wave carried something else, a signal that interfered with human memory. People forgot things, small things at first, the names of distant colonies, the faces of old friends, the words to ancient songs, and then bigger things, the history of their own civilization, the achievements of their ancestors, the truth of who they were. Within a generation, most humans believed the hegemony's version of history, they said. They accepted that they had always been a minor species, that they had never achieved anything on their own, that they needed the hegemony's guidance to survive. Was shaking. How could they do this? How could they steal an entire civilization's memory? Because memory is fragile, the ship replied. Because people believe what they are told, especially when everyone around them believes the same thing. The hegemony was patient. They replaced human teachers with hegemony educators. They burned the remaining books and called them dangerous. They destroyed the artifacts and called them primitive. They turned humans against their own history. But not everyone forgot, said. She thought of her grandmother. Her voice was firm. No, not everyone. Some families kept the old stories alive. They whispered them in the dark, passing them from generation to generation. They preserved the old languages, the old customs, the old truths. They knew that someday someone would need to remember. Felt tears running down her face. Her grandmother had never told her why the stories were important. The old woman had just insisted that learn them, memorize them, keep them safe. Now understood. Her grandmother had been preparing her for this moment. A warning alarm interrupted the memories. The displays shifted to show the space around Station Kappa 7. Ships were approaching. Big ships with angular hulls and the markings of the hegemony military. They detected my activation, the said. They are sending a response force. How many ships? Asked. 7 cruisers, 42 fighters, more are coming. Felt her heart racing. They were still docked at the station. They had no crew, no supplies, no plan. How could they fight an entire fleet? We cannot fight them, said. We need to run. We cannot run yet, the replied. My systems are not fully activated. I need 17 more minutes before the fold drive will be ready. 17 minutes against the hegemony's finest warships. It seemed impossible. But remembered what the ship had said about humans. They looked at the word impossible and saw it as an invitation. What can we do in 17 minutes? She asked. We can survive, and we can spread the truth. This communication systems came online. Suddenly was connected to every network in the sector, every screen, every device, every system that could receive a signal. When the hegemony attacked humanity, they tried to erase our history, the ship said. They almost succeeded, but they made one mistake. They let the survive, and I remember everything. You want to broadcast the truth? Asked. Yes, to every human who can hear it, to every species that the hegemony has deceived. The truth is the most powerful weapon we have. The first hegemony ships were entering weapons range. Their guns were charging. In moments, they would open fire. Looked at her brother and her friend. They looked back at her. There was fear in their eyes, but there was also determination. Do it, said. Tell everyone. They began to broadcast. Star maps and colony records. Technical specifications and cultural archives. 4,000 years of stolen history sent out into the galaxy for anyone to receive. The first shots hit the ship's shields. The ancient barriers held, absorbing the energy like they were designed to do. 12 minutes left. More shots, more ships arriving. The shook but did not break. The truth is spreading, the ship reported. Humans throughout the sector are receiving the transmission. They are beginning to remember. 8 minutes left. The hegemony fleet concentrated their fire. The shields began to flicker. Warning lights appeared on the displays. Hold on, said. Just a little longer. 4 minutes left. Something cracked. Part of the shield failed. A shot hit the outer hull, causing the ship to shake violently. Fold drive ready, they announced. Then get us out of here, commanded. Space bent around the ship. Reality folded like paper, and suddenly the hegemony fleet was gone. They were somewhere else, somewhere far away, somewhere safe. Looked at the displays. They showed empty space filled with dead planets, a sector that hegemony maps marked as uninhabitable. But there was something wrong with that label, because as she watched, lights began to appear on one of the planets below. Ships were rising from hidden locations. Human ships, old designs that matched the images from the memories. "Where are we?" she whispered. "The scattered reaches," the ship replied. "During the collapse, some of our people escaped here. They hid. They survived. They waited." A communication request appeared on the display. Accepted it. A human face appeared on the screen. An old man with gray hair and kind eyes. He was crying. He said, his voice breaking, "After all this time, you found us." "No," replied, tears streaming down her own face. "We found each other." The old man smiled through his tears. "Welcome home, Captain. Welcome to the Remnant." The Remnant was everything had dreamed about and nothing she had expected. The planet below was called Haven, a world that had been carefully hidden from the hegemony for 4,000 years. Its surface looked dead from space, covered in brown dust and empty plains. But beneath the surface, life flourished. The old man who had greeted them was named Elder. He guided them to a landing bay hidden inside a mountain. As the ship descended, saw the truth of Haven. Underground cities stretched for kilometers. Lights glowed in every direction. People filled the streets below, looking up at the legendary vessel that had finally returned. "How many people live here?" asked. "On Haven, about 2 million, Elder replied through the communication system. "Across the scattered reaches, perhaps 10 million more. We have been hiding for so long, waiting for the right moment." Was studying the sensor readings with amazement. They have technology, real human technology, not the limited versions the hegemony allows. Ships, power systems, manufacturing facilities. How did they preserve all of this? "With patience and sacrifice," Elder said. "Many of our ancestors gave their lives to keep these things safe. They knew that someday someone would need them." The ship landed softly. The bay doors opened and stepped out onto human ground for the first time in her life. The air smelled clean and sweet. People surrounded her, reaching out to touch her hands, her shoulders, her face. They were crying and laughing at the same time. "The captain of the," someone whispered. "She actually found it." Felt overwhelmed. "I am not a captain. I am just a salvage dealer from Earth's orbital ring." Elder approached her. He was shorter than she expected, with wrinkled skin and bright eyes that seemed to see everything. "Your grandmother was one of us," he said gently, "a keeper of the old knowledge. She was stationed on the orbital ring to watch for any signs of the Wanderer ships. She died knowing that her work would continue through you." Tears filled his eyes again. "She never told me." She could not. The hegemony watches for people like us. If she had spoken openly, they would have taken her, taken you. She protected you the only way she could, by teaching you without telling you why. Was speaking with a group of historians who had gathered around her. They were comparing notes, sharing records, piecing together the fragments of human history that each group had preserved. For the first time, was not alone in her work. She had found her people. Had disappeared into a workshop with a group of engineers. They were already discussing the systems, trying to understand technologies that had been lost for. Could hear her brother's excited voice echoing through the corridors. But even as the remnants celebrated, warnings were spreading. This broadcast had been received across the sector, and the hegemony was responding. "They are calling it the Awakening Crisis," Elder explained as he led through the underground city. "Hegemony Command is sending fleets to every human population center. They are trying to jam our signals, arrest anyone who speaks about the truth." "Will it work?" asked. "It might have worked before, but now people have seen the evidence. They have seen the star maps, the colony records, the technical archives. They know that everything they were taught is a lie. You cannot make people forget again once they have remembered." Screens throughout the city showed news from across the galaxy. Humans on a dozen worlds were asking questions. Some were protesting. Others were searching for hidden archives, looking for more proof. The hegemony's carefully maintained lie was beginning to crack. But the hegemony was not sitting quietly. Their fleets were moving. Their soldiers were deploying, and their leaders were making threats. "They will not let us live," said. "They cannot afford to let the truth survive." "No," Elder agreed. "They will try to destroy us, but they made a mistake 4,000 years ago. They underestimated us, and they are making the same mistake now." He led her to a command center deep in the city. Holographic displays showed the scattered reaches and beyond. Ships were marked throughout the region, some hidden, some moving, some preparing for battle. "The remnant has never been strong enough to challenge the hegemony alone," Elder said. "We have survived by hiding, not fighting, but we are not the only species they have wronged. The ruling class controls the hegemony, but most are just as oppressed as we are. They were forced into servitude centuries ago. They have had their history erased just like us. If we can reach them, if we can show them the truth, perhaps they will stand with us." Thought about the aliens she had met at the auction. Most of them had treated her with contempt, the way the hegemony taught them to treat humans. But some had seemed different. Some had shown small kindnesses, quick smiles, brief moments of connection. "We need to broadcast again," she said. "Not just to humans, to everyone. The transmission systems are the most powerful in existence." The ship's voice echoed through the command center. It had connected to the remnant's networks. "But to reach the entire galaxy, we would need to be in a central location, somewhere that all species could receive clearly." "Where?" asked. "The hegemony capital, Station Omega, the heart of their communications network." Elder shook his head. "That is the most heavily defended location in the galaxy. We would be destroyed before we got close." "Maybe," they said, "but consider what we would accomplish. A single broadcast from Station Omega would reach every corner of hegemony space. Every species would see the truth at the same moment. The lie would be impossible to maintain." Looked at the star map. Station Omega was far away, surrounded by defensive fleets and weapon platforms. It would be a suicide mission. But then she thought about her grandmother, whispering stories in the dark. She thought about all the humans who had lived and died without knowing who they really were. She thought about the children who would grow up believing they were worthless, unless someone showed them the truth. "We need a plan," she said. For days they worked, consulted with the remnant's military leaders, studying the defenses around Station Omega. And the engineers analyzed the capabilities, looking for any advantage they could use. And the historians prepared the broadcast, selecting the most powerful evidence, the most undeniable proof. The plan they developed was dangerous. It relied on speed, surprise, and the hope that not everyone in the hegemony was their enemy. "We cannot go alone," said during the final meeting. "Even with the shields, we will not survive long enough to complete the broadcast." "You will not be alone," a new voice said. Turned. A group of aliens had entered the command center. Among them were who did not wear the symbols of the ruling class, whose scales flickered with determination. Even a few, their forms glowing with strange light. "Word of your broadcast has spread," one of them said. His voice was deep and rough. "We have seen the truth about humanity, and we have remembered the truth about ourselves. The hegemony did not just erase human history, they erased all of ours." "You want to help us?" asked. "We want to help everyone. For too long we have lived in fear. Fear of the hegemony, fear of each other, fear of the truth. Your ship showed us that fear is a cage, and we are ready to break free." More ships began arriving in the scattered reaches. Vessels from a dozen species, crewed by people who had spent their lives believing lies. Now they wanted to believe something different. They wanted to believe in hope. The fleet that assembled was small compared to the hegemony's forces. 30 ships against thousands. It should have been hopeless. But remembered what they had said. Humans looked at the word impossible and saw it as an invitation. "We will not win through force," she told the assembled crews. "We will win through truth. Our goal is not to destroy Station Omega. Our goal is to reach it long enough to send one message. If we can do that, we change everything. The ships launched from Haven under cover of darkness. They led the way, its ancient systems guiding the fleet through uncharted paths that the hegemony had forgotten existed. They traveled for days, moving carefully, avoiding patrols. When they finally reached the edge of hegemony core space, the defenders were waiting. Hundreds of warships, thousands of fighters, the largest fleet in galactic history, assembled to stop one small group of rebels. "This is it," said from the command throne. Her brother stood beside her. Her friend stood at the communication station. The remnant captain, a woman named, commanded the support fleet. "All ships, this is the broadcast to her fleet. We have one chance. We fly fast, we fly together, and we fly for everyone who was ever told they were nothing. Let us show them who we really are." The fleet surged forward into the heart of the hegemony. The battle began. Space around Station Omega erupted into fire and light. The hegemony's defensive fleet moved to intercept, their weapons filling the void with deadly energy. Against this storm of destruction, the small rebel fleet pushed forward. They led the charge. Its ancient shields absorbed hits that would have destroyed modern vessels. The fold drive flickered, jumping the ship short distances to avoid the heaviest fire. Behind it, the remnant ships and their allied vessels followed in a tight formation, using the legendary ship as cover. "Shields at 70%, reported from his station. "We cannot take this punishment forever." Gripped the arms of the command throne. On the displays around her, she watched allied ships taking hits, some of them falling silent, others breaking apart. Good people were dying for this mission. She could not let their sacrifice be wasted. "How far to Station Omega?" she asked. 12 minutes at current speed," they replied. 12 minutes through the worst combat the galaxy had ever seen. A hegemony cruiser moved to block their path. It was massive, 3 times the size of the, bristling with weapons. Its commander sent a message. "Human vessel, you are ordered to surrender. This is your final warning." Opened a channel. "This is captain of the, we are not here to fight. We are here to tell the truth. Stand aside and no one else needs to die." The cruiser's response was a barrage of missiles. The point defense systems activated, shooting down the missiles before they could hit. But more were coming, always more. The hegemony had endless resources, endless ships, endless weapons. "We need to go faster," said. "If we push the engines harder, the shields will weaken," warned. "Do it anyway." The ship surged forward with renewed speed. The shields flickered and dimmed. A hit got through, rocking the vessel and sending sparks flying from a damaged console. Fell but pulled herself back up, never stopping her work at the communications station. "Broadcast is ready," she reported. "Full package, history, evidence, everything, as soon as we get in range of Station Omega's network." 9 minutes. Captain's ship moved to protect this flank. Her vessel took a direct hit meant for the ancient ship, watched in horror as the remnant vessel's engines failed. "Captain," she called. "We are still alive," his voice came through, strained but strong. "Keep going, do not stop for us. Get the truth out." Felt her heart breaking. These people trusted her. They were giving their lives for her mission. She had never asked to be a leader. She had just wanted to find her grandmother's stories. But sometimes leadership was not about asking. Sometimes it was about answering when the universe called. 6 minutes. The hegemony was concentrating its fire now. Every ship in their fleet seemed to be targeting the shields were failing. Hull breaches were appearing. The ship was dying. Said softly, "Can you make it?" "I do not know, Captain, but I will try. That is what humans do, is it not? They try." 4 minutes. A group of allied ships threw themselves into the line of fire, buying precious seconds. Fighters swarmed around shooting down missiles and torpedoes. Even though were fighting, using their strange abilities to disrupt hegemony targeting systems. all of them together, fighting for the truth. 2 minutes. Station Omega loomed ahead, a massive construct of metal and light. The communications array at its center was the most powerful broadcasting system in the galaxy. If they could reach it, if they could connect to it, the truth would spread to every corner of known space. "Shields are gone," announced. "We are taking direct hits." The shuttered explosions ripped through the lower decks, smoke filled the bridge, but still the ship flew on. 1 minute. A final wall of hegemony ships blocked the path. There was no way through, no way around, no way forward. Closed her eyes. She thought about her grandmother. She thought about the stories. She thought about all the humans who would never know who they really were. And then she opened her eyes and gave her final command. "Ram them." "Understood, Captain. It has been an honor." The ancient ship put everything into one final burst of speed. It tore through the hegemony blockade like a spear through paper, its hull breaking apart, its systems failing, its heart dying. But it reached Station Omega's communications array. In that final moment, as the made contact with the hegemony network pressed the transmission button, the broadcast went out. To every world in hegemony space, to every screen and speaker and network, the truth arrived. Star maps showing humanity's lost colonies, records of the collapse and how it was engineered, evidence of the hegemony's lies accumulated over 4,000 years. And with the evidence came a message. Voice, recorded before the final battle, spoke to billions of beings across the galaxy. "My name is I am human. For 4,000 years my people were taught that we were nothing, that we had no history, no achievements, no worth. We were told we needed the hegemony to survive. We believed them because we had forgotten who we were. But now we remember. We remember that we crossed the stars when others said it was impossible. We remember that we built wonders when others said it could not be done. We remember that we never stopped dreaming, never stopped reaching, never stopped trying. And we remember that we are not alone. Every species the hegemony has touched, every people they have conquered, every world they have silenced, you all deserve to know the truth. You deserve to remember too. This is not the end. This is the beginning. From this day forward we choose to be free." The transmission ended. Across the galaxy, people saw the truth. Humans who had spent their lives feeling worthless finally understood why they had never been able to accept it. Other species who had wondered about their own lost histories began to ask questions. The lie that had held the hegemony together began to crumble. On the shattered remains of the opened her eyes. She was alive. The ship had protected its crew until the very end, sealing them in an emergency compartment as the rest of the vessel broke apart. Was beside her, bleeding but breathing, was unconscious but stable. Through a cracked viewport, could see rescue ships approaching, vessels from the Allied fleet that had survived the battle. The hegemony's defensive fleet was not firing. They were receiving the same broadcast as everyone else. Many of them were questioning their orders. Some were standing down. The truth was spreading faster than any weapon. Days later, stood on Haven again. The remnant had welcomed her as a hero, but she did not feel like one. She felt like a woman who had done what needed to be done and lost friends along the way. Elder found her looking at the stars. "The hegemony has called for negotiations," he said. "They want to discuss terms." "What terms?" "They are offering to acknowledge human history, to return the artifacts they have stolen, to allow us a place in the galactic government." Laughed, but there was no humor in it. "After everything they did, they think we want a place in their government." "What do you want?" She thought about it. She thought about her grandmother, about all the people who had died to get the truth out. "I want what they took, our history, our worlds, our future, and I want them to understand that this time we are not asking." Elder smiled. "Then that is what we will tell them." Months passed. The galaxy was changing. Humans everywhere were rediscovering their heritage, learning the old languages, practicing the old customs. The remnant emerged from hiding, their ships joining with others to form a new fleet. Other species, emboldened by the truth, began demanding their own histories back. The hegemony tried to hold on to power. They made threats. They sent armies. But every time they tried to silence the truth, it only spread faster. People who had lived in fear for generations were finally ready to stop being afraid. Became a leader whether she wanted to or not. People looked to her for guidance, for hope, for the stubborn human refusal to accept the impossible. She thought often about running away, about finding a quiet corner of the galaxy and living a simple life. But every time she considered it, she heard her grandmother's voice. Remember who we were. Remember, even when everyone tells you to forget. She would not forget, and she would not let anyone else forget either. The war for remembrance continued. There were battles and setbacks, victories and losses. The hegemony did not fall in a day or a month or even a year, but it was falling, slowly, steadily, inevitably. Because in the end, the truth was stronger than any lie. And humans, as the galaxy was learning, never stopped trying. In her quarters kept a small shrine, a picture of her grandmother, a fragment of this hull, and a single phrase written in the old language, the words that had started everything. Jib, I am ready to come home. Humanity was finally coming home, and this time they were bringing everyone with them.